Hello, hello, everyone. So, Spirit would have it, right? It's 3 o'clock in the fucking morning. And we're going to talk about the new moon in Scorpio. I took a nap at like, well, it wasn't supposed to be a nap. It just ended up being a nap at like 9 p.m. And I woke up at 11. And right now, my Sudafed and my allergy meds are serving me well. So, might as well take advantage of the fact that I can record without having stuffiness all in there. So we're going to talk about this moon. Now, let me show you the chart. I'm old school. I don't know how to do that fucking screen share shit. I don't. So I printed it out and I drew my little things on there so you guys can see. The first picture is the tight aspects. That's all within like a degree. Okay. And then the second one, the standard aspects, involve the orbs. Okay. So it's what's influencing things, even though they're not necessarily tight. And I do want to talk about Sedna. Now, Sedna is a dwarf planet that was discovered in 2003 on November 14th. So the new moon on the 13th is literally the day before Sedna's 20th. 20th birthday of being discovered. So happy birthday, Sedna. And I want to talk about her a bit because this moon is actually going off where the nodes were the day she was discovered, which I thought was really interesting. She was discovered at 17 degrees Taurus, conjunct the north node in Taurus at 20 degrees. And then the sun was at 21 degrees, right? So conjunct the south node. So the energies that we're visiting today make it really relevant, especially because she's retrograding at 0 degrees Gemini. She's going to retrograde back into Taurus. To give you a perspective about Sedna, her orbit is so far out there. It's so far out there that she's beyond the Kuiper belt to where she's practically in and around the Oort cloud, right? The outer Oort cloud of our solar system. She's really far out there. And her orbit is not affected by the other planets in our solar system. We're like Pluto, Eris, things like that are still affected by Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, like those kinds of bigger gas giants. Sedna is so far out that her orbit does not depend on our inner planets. Okay. Sedna's mythology, so that you get an idea of what Sedna represents. There's a few different variations of the myth, but on the whole, her mother's not mentioned in any of them. Okay. There's one where her mother might be a goddess, but all of the other ones, like the mother's just not mentioned. Okay. But her father is. Now, Sedna, the common denominator in all of the myths are that she has failed marriages, bestial marriages, tricked marriages, or embarrassing marriages. All of her marriages fail. Like in one, she rejects all of the suitors that her father chose for her and married a dog despite him. In another one, a giant bird god ended up presenting himself as a man, carried her away to his nest, and the father tried to save her, only for the bird god to create some huge storm trying to drown them. And so her father threw her overboard to try and save himself, right? And when she was clinging on to the kayak, because these are Native Alaskan myths, Sedna comes from. He chopped all of her fingers off to get her off the boat, and she drowns, right? In all of the myths, the father cuts her fingers off. She's either tossed out of the kayak, thrown out of the kayak by her father, and when she tries to cling on, he literally cuts her hands off, her fingers off, so that he can save himself. And whether it's from something outside of himself or to save himself from embarrassment. There's one myth where he literally just took her out to sea to literally murder her because she embarrassed the family with her suitors. The fact that she married the dog was crazy. So anyway, that's the common denominator. She's betrayed by her father and left to drown in the sea. She's killed to either solve a problem or to save himself, which is essentially the same thing. The problem is he's going down and he doesn't want her to take him down. Like, he literally kills his daughter in all the myths. So Sedna represents the feminine betrayed and left for dead by the masculine in order for the masculine to save itself. This is where Sedna represents where we literally, our minds betray our feelings in order to prove that what we've done already, what we've chosen, how we perceive things, how we think is correct. Right? Because the father is the masculine. The masculine is the shot calling, willpower, choice making, yang aspect of the self. It's our thoughts, it's our choices, it's our actions. The feminine is our heart space. It's our emotions. It's our receptive, how we receive the experience, how our feelings, our intuitive faculties, right? So when our intuition says, no, I would rather do anything but what you're asking me to do, right? The intuition is like, no, don't do what you're about to do. Don't make me feel it, right? Don't make me experience it. Do not make me experience it. The heart space has a bad feeling. It doesn't want to. It's adamant. And the masculine chooses it anyway, right? Our mind chooses it anyway, despite all red flags and warnings flaring off inside the feminine. The mind chooses it anyway. And then when shit starts to go fucking sideways, it literally cuts the heart space off and doubles down in its choice and completely kills all feelings and emotions attached to it, right? In order to save itself embarrassment. It's betrayal, it's self-sabotage, which was a big deal in the Gemini reading, right, that we just did. And ironically, right, Sedna is at 0 degrees Gemini. It's going to be retrograding back into Taurus. Why is this so important? From February 1st, 1437 BC, fast forward 4,220 years later, it will return to the same spot in Sagittarius. It took Sedna 4,221 years. That's how long it's going to take her to go around and return to the same degree. Mind you, when I use my AstroGold app, the AstroGold app doesn't go really beyond 3000 BC or 3000 BCE, AD, whatever you prefer to use, okay? It only has a 3,000 year limit on either end. So I literally traced Sedna's transits as she moved through each of the signs. She spent over 1,400 years in Sagittarius the last time she was there. So Sedna, the fact that she's at this transit point, the fact that she's in her orbit, the closest she's ever going to get to the sun in her orbit, right? She's going to spend a mere 43 years in Gemini and even shorter 39 years in Cancer. We're going to see her transit twice, possibly. Some of us might, depending on how old you are. After that, her sign transits get longer and longer and longer and longer, right? It ranges from 39 years in a sign to over 1,000 years in a sign. So the fact that we're watching her transit and go between this Taurian, Geminian energy it's a big deal. I mean, there are generations upon generations upon generations upon generations upon generations that never saw Sedna in another sign. Like literally, she was in Sagittarius from February 1st, 1437 BC to February 12th, 23 BC. It is over 1400 fucking years. That's wild. That's wild. Then it's been over 1,000 years in Capricorn, you know? So her transits are interesting, especially because, like, to me, she's so far out. If y'all follow me in the astrology, the way I look at astrology, the inner planets, right? We're talking Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and our moon. We're looking at the inner luminaries. That's our consciousness. That is what we create in the world, okay? That is the mind, Mercury, the heart, Venus, our emotions, which is a little bit different, and with the moon, and then our drive, our willpower, right, with Mars. That's what creates the world we see, consciousness. It's everything that has been brought into creation. It's our collective consciousness, everything we see. The outer planets between our asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, things in there. That's our subconscious. Those are the things we think about and feel about as a collective, but that aren't expressed and made into the conscious world, okay? It's all the stuff that goes on internally inside the mind. Everything in the Kuiper belt, right? We're talking Pluto, Eris, Makemake, 𝗂𝘗𝘕𝘌, right? All the things in the Kuiper belt. That is our unconscious. The things that are buried inside the mind, buried inside the memory, that are not necessarily easily retrieved, okay? If they're retrievable at all. These are the things that define who we are as a collective without our conscious knowledge of it, right? We're not thinking about it. We're not feeling about it, but it's there and driving a part of who we are, right? We're talking about transformation, death and rebirth. With Pluto, we're talking about discord, right? Or the acknowledgement of what is creating our discord with Eris. So, and fertility planets like Makemake and 𝗂𝘗𝘕𝘌. So, you know, when we go back into the Kuiper belt, those are the things that are buried and repressed that are not necessarily on our conscious mind. When we go all the way out into the Oort cloud, when we go out that far, right, to sednoids and different OOCs and everything else out there, we're talking about stuff that doesn't pertain to this lifetime, that is a part of a collective conscious from forever ago, right? It's not even controlled or dictated by what is going on right now. That is from times past. Like at some point, for Sedna to be what she is, the shape that she is, she would have had to have had a circular orbit at some point. She would have had to have been closer at some point, and something knocked her off the trajectory so that she is no longer dependent on our system, right? But it's still there, right? It's still there, and it's coming around. It's coming around and having its shortest cycles right now. It's having its shortest cycles right now. Sedna spent 102 years in Aries and then entered Taurus in May of 1966. So she's been in Taurus, will be in Taurus by the time she leaves and enters Gemini permanently for 58 years. Our generation, this blip in time, right? Like if you really think about it, like I was born, right? I was born with Sedna in Taurus. I will witness her in Gemini, and I will probably still be alive when she enters Cancer. Like being able to witness Sedna in three different signs is kind of mind-blowing. Okay. It's an interesting snapshot in the timeline. And it's something that's so deep within the collective self. And it's where the masculine, right, our mind betrays our feminine. When our masculine aspect, our yang, betrays our yin. Not only that, the shamans, after her father betrayed her and literally left her to die in the sea, the shamans and the different hunters and things like that would try to soothe her, placate to her so that they could hunt and have food, because she controlled the walrus and the seal and the different creatures that they hunted, right? We're talking about Alaskan Native American myths. And so if she was not appeased and she was upset, they had nothing to hunt, right? So the hunters, which are masculine, had to go appease her. It's okay, feel better, do this. And that's that masculine. It's like, I know what my needs are. I have to have my needs met. So let's make the feminine feel good just long enough to get my needs met. Let's make the heart feel good enough about the experience to keep getting our needs met. And it, honest to God, sounds to me like our long-term marriages. Our long-term marriages that don't that are for convenience. There's a lot of people, like, there are some people who are truly happily married, right? But then you have these other relationships where there's moments of joy, there's moments of happiness, but the majority of the time it's stressful, it's burdensome, it's sad, it's fill in the blank. And it's like giving the heart space moments of joy to justify all of the horrible moments. We're going to make you happy just for a little bit because our needs need to get met. Right? I mean, how many of y'all had parents that were miserable the majority of the time together? Didn't even really want to be around each other. But, the holidays, it's a time where we put all of that aside, or it's someone's birthday. And so we go out to dinner, or we go and do something fun, like a concert or a show. Maybe you like to go and vacation somewhere and, I don't know, gamble. Who the fuck knows? Right? There are these little moments sprinkled in the timeline that are good. But the rest of the time, it's like they don't even want to talk to each other. They don't even want to hang out with each other. They don't really communicate watching TV. Like, they just sit in the same room, sleep in the same bed, and they're just existing together because, well, they have needs that need to get met. This Sedna energy, And I'm not surprised because, you know, people talk about Pluto and Libra being the death of relationships, right? Where it had like the highest fucking divorce rates. But at the same time, Sedna was moving through Taurus, which is also Venusian ruled, right? Venus ruled, it's love ruled. And it started changing. Those issues started coming up. And now we're moving into a Geminian era with her. We're looking at knowledge. We're looking at analytics. We're looking at facts, right? With Gemini. Knowledge. How then? How then? And I gotta ask it. Are we going to move forward betraying our intuition when it comes to knowledge, when it comes to information for the next 43 years? What's going to happen? Gemini rules education, books, the written word, like the spoken word. What's going to happen? If we don't listen to our intuition and we negate it and then continue to double down as if we're not feeling a fucking thing, that we would dive so hard into ignoring a red flag, like screaming at us, like, please make me experience this, and we do it anyway. These are the kind of things that I question, right? When I look at the astrology of things, because the outer planets, they're fascinating to me. The different asteroids are fascinating to me. So ponder on that. Like, I want you to really ponder on that. And if you feel guided, like, leave me a comment and just let me know what you intuit off of Sedna, right? And everything that I've said just now. Let me know what you think about Sedna, what you're picking up in that. Her transit from Taurus to Gemini, knowing her archetypal energy, right? The betrayal of the masculine, right? The drowning in the sea, right? Drowning in the subconscious, because the sea, if you think about it, is the subconscious. When we talk about the air, the earth, and the water, the sea is the subconscious part of the self, right? Scorpio, Pisces, Cancer, it's all these very subconscious things. And she was left to drown in the subconscious. It's what we think about and feel about, but never bring into the manifestation. She was left to drown. So, with this moon, right? Sedna at 0 degrees Gemini retrograding is in square to 0 degrees Saturn in Pisces. Saturn being a restriction on the soul in Pisces, right? Because Pisces is the sign of the soul. There's restrictions or order being inflicted on those facets of the self, light and shadow, right? Whether it's the fear or the faith that comes along with Pisces. Saturn's bringing in order. And so when it squares Sedna, the restriction on our soul is actually negatively affecting how we're bringing facts, how we're educating ourselves into the reality. How we feel about it is literally being challenged and suppressed, right? Or challenged with suppression. that we would not be able to look at the facts and feel through it, right? That we would not be able to look at the knowledge, right? When we lay it all out, the actual facts, we're not able to do that and feel through it. And I think that that in and of itself is creating some very tense thoughts and feelings, right? Because we're talking Gemini and Pisces, very tense thoughts and feelings below the surface that want to get talked about, but aren't. We want to talk about it, but we can't, right? We feel like we can't. We feel like we have to. It's almost like having, I'm getting that image from Beetlejuice where Beetlejuice literally like throws the metal over her mouth so she can't say his name. And she can't get it off. Like that's the image that I'm getting. It's almost like we want to say it and we feel like we can't, right? We want to feel through and navigate through and intuit through what we absolutely are having suppressed facts wise. We're not talking about things. In addition, the other big challenges with this moon, given if you follow astrology, you've probably heard other astrologers talking about the opposition that Uranus is having with this moon and Mars, right? The sun, moon, Mars conjunction, their opposition. But Lilith is squaring it. Like Uranus is at 21 degrees Taurus. The sun, moon, and Mars are at 20 and 22 degrees Scorpio, and Lilith is at 21 degrees Leo. Lilith in her shadow is self-abandonment. In her light, she's liberation. Okay. And she's presenting challenges to the integration going on with the Uranus new moon Mars opposition. Because squares, to me, when we're talking about oppositions, there's something integrating between the two, right? There's something that needs to be integrated in order to create some kind of balanced energy. So when you throw a square in there, right, because she's T-squaring them, you throw a square in there, it's a challenge that's distracting from the integration going on. That's why it's so uncomfortable, okay? If Uranus is erratic and Taurus is the reality, there's big reality, like actual mundane reality shakes, right? Scorpio is a sign of, like we all know, death and rebirth, transformation, magic, sex and intimacy, right? It rules a plethora of different things. When you're trying to integrate deeply spiritual stuff, because at the end of the day, Scorpio is very psychological. It's very intense and it's psychological. So when you're trying to integrate changes and transformations and fixed signs, right? Because Taurus and Scorpio are fixed. And we've got a change agent like Uranus there. And then we've got this Mars energy driving this moon before it is overtaken by the sun and the moon, right? Because Mars is going to end up behind the sun. And so is Ceres, for that matter. Ceres is just two degrees away from that. So, you know, Ceres' energy is in on this too. But if you're in the shadow of Lilith and Leo, then you're abandoning your highest version of self because of pride and ego, right? Pride and ego, the shadow of Leo. Feeling like you are the most important person in the situation, right? Where we fail empathy, where we fail to connect with everybody else around us, right? Because the opposite of Leo is aqua. That's us being connected to each other, being able to read the energy in a room, and almost like telepathy, right? Reading thoughts, seeing the energy of things, the as above and so below, why things manifest the way they do. Leo doesn't necessarily understand that. Leo wants what it wants, and if it doesn't get what it wants, its ego is hurt, right? You can abandon yourself with ego and pride, or feeling not good enough, or not having the courage, right? Not having the heart to do what needs to be done. Now, if you are in a state of courage and you are in a state of gratitude and you do have a willingness to let things change and be humbled, then Lilith can help liberate you from the shadows of Uranus and Scorpio. Well, Uranus and Taurus and the new moon in Scorpio, that integration. The shadows of this moon, if you are not in alignment, the new moon is going to help you in this way, because your reality is going to change, especially if you have significant placements around 20, 22, 21 degrees, okay, in either of those signs. And given it's got an orb, so it doesn't even matter. You're going to be feeling it quite a few degrees out. I mean, the sun technically has like a 10-degree orb. So you're going to fucking feel it, especially if you got Scorpio placements. There's going to be an aggressive will to change things. An aggressive will to change things. If it's shadow, we could be talking about violent outbursts, right? Whether it's, and we're talking just everyday life. I'm not talking on a global scale. I think we're all really familiar with what is going on right now in the world. I'm not even going to go on there and touch that. I want to talk about you and your life. Okay. Violent outbursts, reckless choices that will inevitably change the environment that you're in. We're also talking potentially people getting pregnant, right? Whether it's women trapping men or men trying to trap women in order to not lose them, right? In which case pregnancy would radically shake the reality. And so would letting the pregnancy go, right? If you find out you're pregnant and decide to let it go and not keep it, like that's going to radically change your reality too, right? And these are fixed changes to the psychological makeup and the reality, right? We're talking Scorpio and Taurus. Things are going to psychologically change, and it's going to be a permanent change moving forward. Right. All of the changes taking place, whatever is going on, it's not coming undone. Okay. So if you've got things going on in your psyche and things going on in your reality and things start to shake, you can't unexperience it. You know what I mean? If you want to be in the high alignment of it, really let yourself, as challenging as it may be, give yourself time and space to look at the facts of it all, right? Instead of from your own selfish, point of view, that Leo point of view where everything revolves around you, really put yourself in a position to look at the facts as if you were just another person acting on the field, right? Acting in the game. This person said this and did this. They were talking to this person. They said this and did this. I was talking to this person, said this and did this. Like, how would it be perceived if the other players knew that I said this or did that? You know what I mean? Like, and really look at all of the pieces on the table with yourself included. if you were being perceived by other people? And would it be acceptable if you were in that other person's shoes? Because the biggest thing is knowing that if we can put ourselves in the eyes of someone else, like we're going to have to remember that is a person who lived a life from the time they were born till the present day. They lived a life that you literally did not experience. And you couldn't imagine it if you tried. My life experience through my eyes was completely fucking different than my sister. Born in the same house to the same family, my experience was completely different than hers. So you talk about someone else in the world, their life from start to finish was completely fucking different. Maybe when I cried as a baby, my needs were met. Maybe my diaper got changed. Maybe someone else's didn't. And that infant mind was literally chemically changing because they were in a state of panic over having physical needs not met, and it permanently changed them. And we wonder why they are the way they are. We don't know everybody's experience from start to finish. The only person that knows that is you. You and your own. So if you look at other people and say, okay, if I were them, just knowing what I know and I'm perceiving me, I'm not going to perceive me from their eyes the way I'm perceiving myself. They're going to perceive me different. I might perceive someone showing me a kindness as a kindness. They might perceive me showing them a kindness as having a motive, having an agenda. Maybe I know what kindness is and I had kind people around me and people gave unconditionally. Maybe everybody who ever did anything nice for them, they owed them. They wanted something in return. Now that person's in debt. Like, you have to be aware of other people. So if things are happening and things are changing and relationships and psychology is literally transforming into something different, you have to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and find gratitude. Really find gratitude, right? We're talking about the distraction being Lilith. If you're going to liberate yourself and get into this integration between Taurus and Scorpio, if you're really going to clean slate something and have the drive to move forward, you have to be so motivated from gratitude that things are different, because it's finally putting you in an alignment and a path to meet who you need to meet and achieve what you need to achieve and do what you need to do in your highest good and be in that mindset. Because if you get lost in the despair of it all, if you get wrapped up in the despair and the destruction, because Mars with the sun and moon in Scorpio opposing Uranus, and its shadow is fucking destruction. If you get sucked into the destruction and you think you have to take a position because of ego, because of pride, because of whatever, you're going to miss the mark on the integration. You're going to miss the transformation. You're going to miss the revelation that follows, because Uranus is still retrograding. The revelation is like yet to come. Trust me when I tell you, if you do the steps, if you take the steps, especially because fortune, right? Fortune is at 29 degrees Virgo, trining on Sedna. It's about to enter Libra. It's at 29 degrees Virgo at the exact time that we're having this new moon. It's trining Sedna. If you can follow the steps to look at the information being suppressed by your own mind and feel through it with your intuition, because Venus is right there, you're going to feel so fucking blessed and grateful that you did. Really take yourself into account when it comes to how things manifest, like self-accountability, self-ownership. Everything happens for a reason in our lives. And we are not free from any blame or any dirt, you know? We have to take responsibility for our part in it. Pluto is also still squaring on the nodes. It's a 4-degree orb out, but it's still squaring on it. Eris is conjunct the north node, and we've got Pallas there with south node. Pallas Athena in Libra. That integration. You have to plan for chaos. You have to know that if you've got shit buried under there, wounds, right? Because Eris is the goddess of discord. She doesn't actually create disharmony. She brings up the disharmony that already exists within the self for you to see. Oh, you've got scars. You've got wounds in your psyche, in your relationships with yourself and other people. Well, let's bring it up to the surface, right? Pallas is your defense system. You might not start the war, but you win the war, right? Pallas is strategic. If you're going to get through the integration, you need to find harmony with the fact that you are not perfect and that your wounds create imperfect circumstances. If you can recognize and actually see how your own wounds, whether they're abandonment wounds or fear, right? Just fear, insecurities. Like if you have doubts about yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, like if all of those things are within you and you create certain scenarios and take certain actions because of these buried things, like whatever your fears are, whatever your wounds are, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, right? You've got to understand that those faulty beliefs drive your actions. Your beliefs drive what you feel about. You feel about what you believe. You feel about what you perceive. And then you start to think about how you feel, and then you take actions. If you have a faulty belief, you're going to keep repeating the same patterns over and over because Pallas sees patterns. The South Node being on Pallas is about erasing patterns of discord. What belief is buried in there? What belief on how we do things, right? Pluto in Capricorn, a belief on how we do things, buried in the subconscious. How is it driving a pattern that we're feeling the same thing over and over again and thinking about it, the same thing, different people, different situations, same feelings, same thoughts. We're dealing with it again. We take the same actions, deal with it the same. It causes fucking problems. It causes problems. This is where we break the pattern, right? The only way to break the pattern is to realize that your faulty belief somewhere within the self about the self is causing reality problems. What's the faulty belief about the self? Are you not good enough? Are you not worthy? Are you not lovable? Are you not capable? Are you not smart enough? Are you stupid? Like, what is the belief about the self that is flawed? What have you been taught? What did your parents, right, teach you? My whole life, I've been overcoming this second best is good enough. I'm always second best. My whole life. I'm not second best. Like, I'm working on becoming the priority. I'm working on becoming the first choice. I won second place in a beauty pageant when I was 3. My mother favored my sister, even though I was her firstborn. The secondborn was her chosen one. I came second to Valerie. boyfriends over the years would cheat, choose someone else because I was an option. I was second. They would choose somebody else, second best, my whole life. Not anymore. Like, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. The patterns, this is about seeing the pattern. Where does that belief come in? If you can just acknowledge it, if you can see it and acknowledge it, that's like the first step. But you've got to dig what's been repeating. Even my father chose my mother, like my abusive mother over me. And I was a daddy's girl, like I was his firstborn. I was always second. Someone else was always more important, always better, even if there was no reason why they were better. Even if I was clearly better, quote unquote. It's relative. What's your pattern? Identify it. What are the feelings that come up? What are the actions that you take because of it? Do I try and prove my worth? Do I stick around in relationships a little bit too long, even though they're painful, because I'm trying to prove that I'm worth being number one? Not anymore. I fucking don't. You know what I mean? Like, this is where with this moon, like I said, the psychology, the reality is changing, transforming, shaking up, permanently moving forward. You are not going to be living the same cycle moving forward. Not even a little bit. Get the facts straight. Sedna retrograding into Taurus is allowing you a window until I think April. She'll be in Taurus until April of next year. When she clips back into Taurus, like, you will have a time to regain your sense of facts, because once she moves into Gemini permanently for the next 43 years, it's going to be really hard to take ownership of yourself and look at all the facts. You're going to be locked in there. It's not going to be fun, you know? One of the big benefits with this new moon, there's two, but I'll get there. First one is the trine going on between Jupiter and Juno. Jupiter is retrograding at 9 degrees Taurus, and Juno is at 10 degrees Virgo. Jupiter and Juno in trine, right? Because we're literally talking about Zeus and Hera. When they're in trine, they're in agreement. And they're in a sign of possessions and resource and service and health. Okay. If you can focus on doing what you need to do in your reality to best serve, one, your health and the greater good, that would be where you could focus your energy when you're distracted or overwhelmed with other things. Like, if you're dealing with the crazy, T-squares and the oppositions, and it feels overwhelming, like, when you start to get nervous, like, go back and revert to service and 3D stuff. Like, Virgo likes to keep things clean. Like, you might want to go through your items, get rid of old items, get rid of old energy, right? Start to clean through things. If you've got dust on the baseboards that's been there for like 2 years, it might be a really good time to just focus on cleaning up the details, right? Cleaning up the details of the reality, especially if it's fallen behind lately. Like me personally, I got to clean out the back seat of my car. I got to clean out the back seat of my car. And I want to go through my closet. I just want to get rid of things, right? If I haven't worn it in a year, I think I'm just going to get rid of it and donate it. So take that time if you're feeling overwhelmed to go through things, because as above and so below, as you start to clear out your outer space, you're going to allow yourself to feel more clear inside your inner space, and you'll be able to move forward in your actions and your choices in a much more aligned direction because of that trine, Jupiter and Juno. Okay. We've also got a yod going on. It's minors. I mean, given it's Saturn, but it's white moon and fortune. Saturn's at 0 degrees Pisces, and then we got white moon at 29 Aries and fortune at 29 Virgo, and they're aimed at fortune. So white moon Selene sees the beauty in people that are asleep. Think about what I just said. We have restrictions on the soul right now, right? With Saturn. Faith and fear is being given some kind of order. That's in sextile with white moon and Aries. If we can accept, because it's the sign of the self, right? And we're at these fucking anaretic degrees, right? 29 degrees. If we can accept that the self is burnt out from being asleep, and that we need to bring more order to our soul so that we're not living in a fear state, but have more faith, it will literally unlock the steps you need to take in order to bring harmony to yourself and the life you're creating with your choices. Fortune at 29 degrees is literally going to go right into Libra and touch on Venus. It's a very happy place. But you really need to get in touch with some faith and know that you can love the part of yourself that's been asleep because it has literally helped you to wake up, to see the steps to wake up, what you have to do to wake up, to not relive the same patterns anymore, right? To have that harmony with your experience because you have a harmony within the self, that you would be able to make new choices that feel good and not suppress what you feel in order to gain a specific result, right? To allow yourself to surrender and to be humble, right? To liberate yourself from pride or ego or attachment, right? Or obsessions or things that we've just held on to forever, whether those are literal things or beliefs. That we can allow our connection to our inner divinity and how that divinity connects all of us to each other, how we can transform who we are in favor of that acknowledgement that we all want to wake up, that we all don't want to suffer. No one wants to suffer. No one wants to be in pain. No one wants to do without. No one wants to doubt themselves. No one wants to have anxiety and worry about the people that they love or, you know, the life that they're living in their home or their food. Like no one wants to worry about this shit. Not a single person on the planet wakes up and says, I can't wait to worry about what I'm going to eat today. No one, right? And we're doing our best to wake up. The best you can do in high service to the collective is just focus on yourself, right? I say it all the time. If everyone in the world just focused on healing themselves, the whole world would literally be healed if everyone just focused on themselves. Because once one person wakes up, it's inevitable at some point that is going to spread. People are going to start eye open, see what really matters. They're going to see what steps to take. And so if you're moving forward, what I would like you to take from this video trust and believe in your ability to transform. Trust and believe in your ability to change. Trust and believe that there is a divine something greater than us that connects us all together, and not just us as people, but the whole dang universe. It's connected as above and so below, micro, macro. Like we're not separate from anything. And know that it's all coming with purpose, even if we don't understand it. Everything that comes is only helping us wake up. And if we can remember to dig, if we can remember to look at the facts with ourselves being a part of the facts of the experience, that we can actually shift and change things. You can change your life. You don't have to keep repeating the same patterns and feeling the same pain and going through the same cycles, the same karma, the same soulmates from 1,000 fucking years that hasn't healed. Right? You can choose something completely different and liberate yourself doing it. Like, trust you can change your experience for the better. Dear universe, whatever you would have me say, whatever you would have me do, wherever you would have me go, if it's in the highest good of all, so be it. You don't have to control anything. Let the divine guide you. Sync up your free will with divine will and watch your life change. Watch the world change. Let it start with you. All right. I love you, and I'll see you later.